So in that vein of one person can make a difference, our next speaker really is probably one of the most young pro-life women with a recognizable face across our country right now in the United States. She is someone who started as a young person in high school and then college with a passion to illuminate for life. One person with passion can create a vision and a plan to accomplish great things. And I'm so excited to welcome Lila Rose, the founder and president of Live Action, today to our stage to really share with you the truth that one person, one campus group who makes a plan can make a difference, can impact not only their school, but their state, and then their nation. So welcome, Lila Rose.
You're awesome. Thank you so much, Tina and Kristen and everybody here. How are you all doing tonight? Awesome? Isn't it awesome to be here for the greatest movement of our day, the most important movement of our day, protecting the weakest, the littlest, the most innocent? So you are the pro-life generation. We are the pro-life generation. I'm proud to be here with all of you. Who here is from farthest away, do you think? Who came from the farthest away? Okay, a lot of people. Where are you all from? Colorado? North Dakota? That's the farthest. Any Californians in the room? California? Shout out. Okay, I'm a Californian. I moved to DC a few years ago to take the fight to Washington. But I want to tell you a little bit about, we are here. We are here today. We were marching yesterday because we all know the truth. We all recognize what's happening in our country. We all have that sense of urgency. We see and we know that with every day that goes by, we're losing 3,000 more children to that ultimate human rights abuse of abortion. We know because of friends we may have had, we know because of experiences in our own lives or in our family, what abortion has done to our relationships, what it's doing to our nation. That's why we're here. We recognize that. We see that. Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who is this little humble nun, and she just inspired the world with her love. She inspired the world with her work for the lepers and the dying and the lonely in Calcutta, India. Whenever she had the opportunity, she had very strong words to say about abortion. And in front of the National Prayer Breakfast in the 90s to a very pro-abortion crowd, so speaking to people that may not want to hear what she was about to say, think Bill and Hillary Clinton, and she's this expert on peace. She's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, although Al Gore won that, a few years ago, so I'm not sure what it means anymore, but she's this amazing inspiration to the whole world. And she's standing at this podium, this tiny little nun, and she's looking into this huge audience of the most powerful people on the planet. And she says these words. She's talking about the lepers, the lonely, the dying, the hungry, but then she drops this bomb. And she says, the greatest destroyer of peace in the world today is the cry of the innocent unborn child. And that's why we're all here, because we know that this country cannot succeed, we cannot thrive, we cannot survive if we allow for this injustice at the very core, at the very foundation of our nation. That's why when I was a teenager, I said, okay, I have to do something about abortion. I didn't know how to get involved necessarily. There was no Students for Life group in my neighborhood. I was from San Jose, California. There was no organization, but I got together with some friends when I was 15, and we formed Live Action by saying, we're just gonna get together and make a start. And I didn't know where it would take me. I didn't know where it would bring me, but I knew I had to start somewhere. And you're all here because you're self-starters. Many of you are leaders in your group, or you want to lead more and you want to get active. And I applaud that. I'm proud of that. I was trying to do that myself. I'm 26, so I'm not too far ahead of you, but I was trying to do that myself in high school and college, and I'm still trying to do that now with an office out of Washington, D.C., and working across the country, exposing the abortion industry, investigating the abortion industry, showing what's actually happening, showing how this is a human rights abuse, yes, against the child, we know that, but it's an abuse against the woman, against men. It turns women against their own flesh and blood. We know that women don't walk into abortion clinics feeling powerful. We know they walk into abortion clinics feeling powerless. And we get that. We know that science and reason shows us that it's a child, that logic shows us that this is a human life, that justice demands that we protect that life. We know that. We've seen videos of what happens in the abortion industry. I'm going to show one for you that's just 3 minutes long in a moment here. And all of this is because we have a foundation that we're standing on together. We marched on this foundation yesterday. We're standing on it together here. We're here to share ideas, to network, to get reinvigorated, to dance with that DJ. I was like, is that a DJ there, like dancing on the stage right now? I'm like, this is really cool. But we're here to enjoy that and to come around together and to resolve ourselves further. I'm going to show you this video. It's just a peek into what many of you have already seen, the ongoing work to expose the truth about what's happening in our country. Because as many of you know, because you've seen it on your campuses, when the truth is covered up, apathy and ignorance, which fuels apathy, reigns. And we can't make the progress we need to make when the truth is covered up, when the lies are present or the lack of information is there and people just don't realize what abortion does and how it's devastating to relationships, how it kills a child. So we need to show the truth. A lot of Americans think when you say Planned Parenthood, for example, that it's some great pro-women's organization. Like, don't they provide health care? And you're like, oh my gosh, if I hear that again, I'm going to cry. No, if I hear that again, I'm going to go undercover 10 more times. But it's like, you know, there's so much misinformation. And Planned Parenthood just released their annual report, and they release one every year. And this one says that their abortion numbers went up, but guess what? Their cancer prevention screening services, their healthcare services for women, guess what happened to them? They went down. How many people know that? How many people know that they're the biggest abortion chain? How many people know how women really fare in abortion clinics across the country? How many people know about Kermit Gosnell? How many people know about what's happening with abortionists and how they're treating women and what they're doing to children? So we're standing on this truth, and we have to share this truth, and that's the first step. I'm going to show you this video, and then I want to leave you with the next step, which is what we're going to do when we all leave tonight and we go home to carry the work on in our communities. But we'll start with the video now.
At this point, does it have like all of its organs and all of that stuff? Like, is it already fully
It's not
developed?
fully developed.
Okay.
It doesn't even look like a baby yet.
It doesn't?
Technically, it has its organs. It has parts, like we all have parts, but it's not done.
So, like, does it have a face or like all of that stuff? Or?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's developing into.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want you to torture yourself. And then step 2 is that we do the injection, which is a quick poke through your belly, and that stops the fetal heart. So that makes it so if you were to deliver, there shouldn't be movement, there shouldn't be any of those things. We use a combination of suction and then real instruments to literally go in and grab and pull pieces out.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe that's a little more graphic than I usually describe it.
So what makes the baby mushy?
The fact that it's not alive for 2 or 3 days.
So I'll have a dead baby in me?
For 3 days, yeah.
Will it start to decay or something?
No,
Oh.
so it's like putting meat in a crock pot. Okay, it doesn't get broke, but it gets softer. It doesn't get infected or.
Okay.
You know.
So the dead baby in me is like
It's
meat in a crock pot.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of much.
All right. All right.
In a slow cooker.
And what do you use to break it up? Just
A whole
what'd you
bunch
say?
of it.
Got a toolkit.
Pick, axe, a drill, but
I see.
So,
Okay.
no, I mean there's just instruments that have been developed. I'd have better luck standing in front of a train and getting hit and surviving than going 100 miles an hour than the baby.
And then it's just, I mean, like any shot, like a flu shot or a vaccine, really.
Just like a flu shot or vaccine,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I, where when we get a flu shot, we're kind of, ooh, not that experience of anxiety and suffering it's not capable of. And so
Okay.
that, I think, helps us all to feel more comfortable with this.
Yeah, to know that it's not like, yeah.
Not
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a thinking being in the same way that you and I are. Right?
Okay.
It takes a lot of life to get to have to be worried about stuff the way that we worry about stuff, right?
We all know. We all know what we're fighting. Some of us know what we're fighting more deeply or in a different way than others, but we all know what we're fighting. We're fighting something very ugly. We're fighting something very, sometimes complicated, very hurtful. We're fighting a great evil. But as we leave today, some of us maybe have another day in DC to visit monuments or museums, but we go back home. What next? We had this great experience. Many people enjoyed the march yesterday. There were hundreds of thousands of people marching. But when we go home, what next? And I think that the core of our movement, the core and the heart of our movement is, of course, anti-abortion, fighting to end this great evil, fighting to expose it. But the deepest core of our movement is the recognition of the dignity, of the value of every person. And we hear that, like the Life is Good shirts, we say life is precious. You're in the airport and there's that Life is Good store with the ugly pastel t-shirts, you know what I'm talking about, and everyone wears them. Sorry if you like those, but there's this like slogan in our country and all over, like life is good, life is precious, value life. But what does that really look like now? Because our movement will not succeed if we are not transformed by living that message. We have to be transformed in order to live that message. And what does that look like? What does that mean as we go home? We have the truth on our side. We know that justice is on our side. We know that love asks us to protect the innocent. But what does it look like for each of us as we go home? I committed myself to this cause as a teenager. It's been 11 years now. I never thought I would be involved in the way I've been involved. I'd be doing the things that I'm doing. But the lesson that I know that I have to learn again every day is seeing the person that I encounter, whether it's in the elevator, the person that is my family member, the person in my organization, Live Action, the person that I'm working with, is seeing them as a child of God, recognizing I'm a child of God, seeing them as a child of God, and that transforms the way that I behave. Martin Luther King Jr. is recognized and revered. We just celebrated his day on Monday, Reverend Martin Luther King. And he was so popular and so powerful, not because he was fighting necessarily discrimination and racism and segregation. Malcolm X was doing that, but we don't remember Malcolm X in the same way, right? He was so powerful, and he had the authority to lead the way that he did because he called everyone to a higher calling. He called everyone to a higher law. And that was not just that I'm going to fight for the black person who's being completely humiliated and treated with disrespect, but I want to create a country where whites and blacks and Gentiles and Jews and people of all different races, all different backgrounds can come together and to link arms and to walk forward. And he ends his famous I Have a Dream speech by saying, linking arms and walking forward and saying, free at last. Free from hatred, free from division. So then as we go home, we ask ourselves, okay, I'm going to be a pro-life activist. This is the greatest human rights abuse of my day. I'm committed, and we need that commitment. This movement will succeed with only that commitment. But then it has to transform how we treat each other. Let's start with our clubs, how we love each other in our clubs. That annoying person in our club that frustrates us, that's maybe more nerdy than we are, or maybe I'm the nerd and I'm cooler than they are, whatever. How do we treat the people in our club? How do we treat our friends? How do we treat the people that annoy us on campus because they just don't get it? How do we do away with maybe it's gossip, maybe it's apathy, maybe it's laziness in our own little ways, maybe it's thinking we're better than other people because we have the truth and they don't. Everybody has a different struggle. Everybody has a different challenge. But how do we recognize in the person that we're encountering every day that they're a child of God, just like we're fighting for the children of God in the womb who have no voice or protection? And if our movement can link arms and live that expression of love in the day-to-day, the little acts of love, the little fidelities day-to-day, we will transform this country because we're doing it with love, because we're doing it with the recognition of God in the other, because we're doing it with the recognition of God in us. That's how we're going to win this great fight. I'm so proud to be with all of you. I'm so proud to be in this movement with all of you. Our generation will end abortion in our lifetime. We can change the face of this country. Under just God, we will prevail. I want to leave you with a few words from Blessed Mother Teresa. As I mentioned earlier, she's a hero of mine. She's someone that I go to. You know, a lot of the people in history who are now hailed as heroes, you look at their lives and the suffering and the perseverance they had to have, and it's very inspiring. So I majored in history because I wanted to learn more about people I could learn from and respect and I could be inspired by. But Mother Teresa, of course, you know, she suffered a lot in her life. She completely gave her life to God as a nun. She did it in a very unique way. All of us are called to give our lives in different ways. All of us have a different path to give our life totally for what is right, for what is true, for what is love. But of course, in her pilgrimage on earth and her time here when we had her with us, she passed away, of course, as we lost Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many who have gone before us. But when we had her here with us, she wrote a letter to the Supreme Court. She wrote a letter to the Supreme Court challenging their decision in Roe v. Wade. And of course, we just marched to protest it. By the way, we should not just march on the Supreme Court. Sometimes I feel like we need to march on Congress as well. I mean, when are we going to march on the White House? We need to march on a lot more than just the Supreme Court because all of the politicians right now have responsibility to do what's right. It's not just the Supreme Court who can solve this problem. It's all of us have a different responsibility. But this is her closing words that she wrote to the Supreme Court, begging them to reconsider. And she says, "America needs no words from me to see how your decision in Roe v. Wade has deformed a great nation. The so-called right to abortion has pitted women against men and men against women. It has pitted mothers against their children. It has sown violence and discord in the heart of the most intimate human relationships." And she says, "I have no new teaching for America. I seek only to recall you to the faithfulness that you once taught the world." So as we go home and prepare to take everything we've learned, all the inspiration that we've gleaned in the last few days, we're going home to live out that faithfulness that our nation once taught the world, she's saying, and that I believe our nation is meant to be an example of for the world. That faithfulness to love of the other, to giving our life even for the other when it's difficult. And that comes out in all different ways, sometimes very quiet, personal ways, but serving and giving for the other and living that in the day-to-day. Because in the end, that's how we're going to have triumph over evil. We're going to have the victory that we want and we all are fighting for, that victory of love. Thank you so much. God bless all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.